Here. So call this meeting of the Beaufort County Board of Education Technology Committee to order. Meeting is being live streamed by county channel and conducted by remote conferencing. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. If we could all stand for that, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next order of business is approval of the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Second. Second by Geyer. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. 3-0. Do we have any public comments, Robin?
No, sir. No, sir.
I would be surprised if we did. This is our inaugural meeting, so I think we need to get done today is just define the scope of the committee. What exactly is our mission? Where is the fence? And what is our product basically? And I'm going to just go around the horn because I think both Ingrid and Dick have thought about this and have better ideas than I do. So Ingrid, take it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I think that the technology committee should serve as, I'm getting feedback. Are you guys hearing that or is it me? Okay, as sort of a strategy, coming up with a strategic plan for technology, to look at the value of technology. I think we need also then to look at key results and initiatives and outcomes of technology purchases and technology decisions. And I think we need a better stakeholder process. So students, families, teachers, school administrators, that they all have some, we're at least accounting for them in the technology plan. So the biggest thing for me with, two things is the user end of technology, the UX and the UI of our different programs. And then what sort of feedback loop do we have when we implement technology? What was the goal of the technology? And then what did we achieve that goal? So is someone checking to make sure that if we added services to improve speed in the classroom, is someone checking to make sure that the speed actually is improving, et cetera? Certain metrics are met. So it's sort of a policy based instrument to review technology value.
Okay. Dick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really started looking at OE 17, and OE 17 is titled Administrative Technology, and it has a bunch of things for the superintendent shall and the superintendent shall not, is interpretations, infrastructure, security support, core technology to assess the internet and applications with controls addressing security, physical and data, privacy and compliance in order to prevent interruptions with student learning and or district operations. Now that is boiled down into a number of things. It's got review technology plans, policies, and key technology strategies. Compliance, monitoring indications that this committee should be figuring out how often, when, and where, and what kind of data, but basically internet bandwidth usage, wireless usage, data center downtime, days exceeding 75% network capacity, and network wide area network WAN availability. Monitor equity in all of technology in all schools. There should be some kind of a measurement. They've got it listed as monitoring indicators that we should be looking at as a committee. Network security, monitor authorized and unauthorized access over the district's computer networks. to or submission of inappropriate material via the internet, electronic mail, and other forms of direct electronic communications. Monitoring for compliance in this what I just mentioned. This is evidence that we have employed firewalls, backup systems, virus protection, encryption, and other generally accepted best practices, and evidence that security procedures have been assigned based on employees' role and location. Here's a very key one. Ensure district has appropriate disaster recovery and business continuity plan. And that's something that this committee should be looking at. And the monitoring indicators are evidence of annual expenditures for cloud services, evidence of annual expenditures for data interpretation services, and evidence of updated data recovery and business continuity plan. As you all know, cybersecurity has been key. Malware and ransomware have brought a number of governmental and private institutions to their knees. And we need to know what our recovery process is in detail. Monitor physical security measures. Ensure continued engagement with technology partners for bandwidth expansion. So these are all in OE 17. There's one other one on allow technology equipment to be subject to improper use or insufficient maintenance. Evidence of signed acceptance use policy, evidence of inventory record and annual inspections, evidence of web help, desk tickets, reporting damages, evidence of regular software updates, and evidence of staff training. That's all in OE 17. That's a lot to chew on. And I made some other notes that this committee, in my mind, should really be paying attention to what professional development is being done in technology, not only for users, but also for our technology department. What type of professional development is going on within that department? The refresh and reinvestment strategy for technology hardware. Again, I mentioned cybersecurity. And really develop an effectiveness measurement strategy overall for technology. And lastly, I believe we need to institute a periodic outside technology assessment program. So that's a whole lot of stuff. But really, it's important that all of that be addressed. It's in the OEs, but how are we going to be monitoring the performance? Thank you.
Wow. I have to admit, I didn't realize OE 17 was that comprehensive. And I think without a doubt, that's probably our major focus. My only question would be on the other things that that you mentioned, Dick, the professional development and data and was it refresh strategy, effective measurements, and I'll salute that for sure. And the external review, is that something we should be putting in the OE?
Well, I think it's something that we should put in as a policy that is happens as much as we've done. You know, we do an audit for our fiscal program. We get in outside folks to take a look at our HR program. Technology is something that is so complex and so fast moving that bringing in periodically, and how often is periodically? I don't know, 3 years, 5 years, I don't know what it should be, but bring in some outside experts to come in and take a look at our network, take in and look at our procedures, take in and look at our training, and just share best practices from other like-size organizations that they deal with, just to give us another set of eyes. And technology, I think, needs that, just like our financial system, our HR system, and everything else.
Yeah, I agree. The thing the OE missed, I think, that Ingrid brought up was the community involvement. I don't, that wasn't, it's not in there, and
yep.
I'm not quite sure how that works out, but we'll put it down.
David, can I ask a couple questions as we go along here? Or do you want me to put my hand up? Would you prefer an electronic hand or?
I'd rather you just speak up.
Okay, good. So, you know, my overview of my goals for this technology committee were sort of a vague kind of what I see the potential for this committee scope to be, but I didn't want to get too specific because I went online, and there's a bunch of stuff on the technology department that I think seems like it's out of date, at least a little bit. And I just kind of wanted to understand what we're already doing, because I don't know, like to Colonel Geyer's point, you know, we should be doing some network mapping, functional mapping, you know, mapping our hardware, but we may already be doing that and it's just not being brought to the board. So that's kind of one of my first points is, before, as we start to investigate what the scope is, what are we already doing? And I know that on the technology page, it says that for any technology purchases, there's a review committee that's made up of community members, et cetera. But I don't know if that's, sorry. Okay, maybe it's just me, my phone, my iPad's chattering at me. So I would kind of like to find out what we're already doing to see if we need to expand the scope or if it's just something the board is just not being made aware of.
Okay. I'm thinking of how to get this moving forward. Maybe we could just have Mark's on, I believe, walk us through the OE17 pieces, and we'll see what we're already doing, and then identify some gaps that we see. Does that sound logical? Yeah. Does that sound good to you, Mark?
Sure.
There's a lot in that OE, and as Ingrid said, you probably are doing most of it already, and we just don't know it.
Okay, where do you want to start?
Let's see. You want to just start trooping through it?
Okay. Number one, ensure consistent best-in-class support. One of the ways we measure that is through our web help desk ticketing system. So for every instance of a technology problem, we ask that our employees put in a web help desk ticket. We use those to route the request problem to the correct technology associate to make it more efficient. We also use that as a tracking mechanism to find out what's going on in the district, because if we see 4 or 5 tickets from a certain school, we automatically know that it's not a isolated onesie-twosie problem. It's probably something dealing with a network switch, maybe an access point down, if we're seeing a subsection of a building without connectivity. We also use our web help desk tickets because at the end of each web help desk ticket, we send the user a survey and we ask them 4 questions about how well the tech did, how timely the service was everything answered for you and your problem was resolved. And at the end of every year, we take the results of those and I put in my
Can you do me a favor?
I put in my budget request for the following year. So I lay out how many responses we got, how many web help desk tickets we answered, how many responses of survey requests we got back, and the rough percentage of where those survey results lied. For the second one, review general technology.
Wait, hold on a second. Sorry.
Sure.
On number 1, so that's one of my questions. Okay, so if what I'm reading from that OE is that it should be proactive as well as reactive, right? Like, is there anything in there where you're identifying what stakeholder expectations are And then, how are we preventing problems? Because I don't think the web help desk is doing enough of that. Do you have additional steps, or is that something that we should maybe work on in this committee?
We use it as a tool. We also have other pieces of software that review the network. One is our Orion SolarWinds, which constantly looks at all the equipment in our desk.
So you do use SolarWinds. Okay, that was one of mine. Yeah. Okay.
This is not the hacked version. We stay up to date with our products. We use a piece of software called Avante that constantly goes out and does patch updates on all of our servers. So problem with most of the districts or entities that got caught with the SolarWinds problem was they were 2 reversions behind on their software. So one of the
SolarWinds is a great product.
Oh, it is. It's wonderful. And not only is it a great product, it's cheap. Compared to other products, it's about a quarter of the cost. So we save a lot of money for the district using it. So we use Avante to help with patch management. That's one of our key things. It lets us know when any of our servers are out of date. As you know, we've got a couple of new patches that came out from Microsoft from vulnerabilities in their Windows 12 product. We are already on Windows 16 and working on Windows 19 for our servers. We only maintain one Windows 2012 server. That's because of a legacy issue with the software, and we can't upgrade it yet until it gets phased out, hopefully within the next year. We do keep extra watch on that server to make sure all the antivirus and everything is patched. We also use a tool called Sccm, which is System Management Center from Microsoft. That is the way we deploy policies, we deploy updates, we deploy antivirus to all of our users and servers throughout the district. That's another one of our key. Go ahead.
Is that all right? David?
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Thank you. I hear all this and it sounds great, but I look at this like the Wizard of Oz. I'd like to look behind the curtain. I would like to see those logs. I'd like to see the desk and who handles that and how it's handled and how the reports are sent through your system there so that we can see the types of things that you deal with on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. That's a way to give us an idea of the scope of your operation. One of the things I strongly recommend that this committee does is go to your shop and have a tour and see your people, what your people do, what their job descriptions are, and so on. So we understand the technology department and what the technology department does. We have a lot of great bullet statements of what's being done, but I'd like to see some of that as well. Thank you.
And David, if I may jump in, I agree with that, Colonel Geyer. It's just nice to hear, because when you say for number one, well, we use web help desk tickets, that doesn't get, that doesn't get to a lot of the problems. SolarWinds, the Avante, all those things make me feel like there's a lot. That seems like a much more comprehensive answer as far as what you're already doing. Because if we were just looking at web help desk tickets, web desk help tickets, that wouldn't be getting the job done at all. But it sounds like there's a lot more going on. And I think, to Colonel Geyer's point, it'd be nice to see that sometimes.
There is, and one thing I must say up front is that we're going to have to be very delicate with the information shared to the public for cybersecurity.
Very.
We have no problems inviting you in the space, showing you around, but we have to be very careful with documentations, IP addresses, and security systems we are currently using in place just to keep the network safe.
Yeah, and I just, a reminder, we need to focus on results. So I'm seeing how long it's taken us to get through this number one, and that's okay, because it's our first meeting and we're gonna bounce around a little bit. But we do need to focus on results, and I think you both mentioned it, Dick and Ingrid mentioned, you know, what are the results we're getting from this technology? Are there goals? Are we hitting them? How do we monitor it? So
I think another piece to add to that is our Fortinet Firewall. We get some very good analytics out of it on traffic coming in and out, the amount of traffic that gets blocked before it ever gets to our network. Another key piece is our email our email spam filter. The simple fact that on an average month, you know, we receive about 4 to 5 million emails, and out of that 4 to 5 million emails, maybe 600,000 to 700,000 actually get to our users. That is how much is malware, grayware, ransomware, all the bad stuff that is coming into the district.
Have we ever had a ransomware attack?
Yes, sir.
I thought so. I thought we did
We've had
that.
multiple on both occasions. One was at a high school, one was at an elementary school. We noticed the attack. We cut the internet off to the school. We mitigated it, restored from backup, and had the school back up within 2 days. So we have experienced it in the past. We do maintain backups. We have our primary SAN, a secondary SAN down at our secondary data center. So that's 2 copies of our data. Plus we have a backup system that backs up all the data. Then at night, it takes that data and sends it to the cloud. So we have 5 to 6 versions of our data at any given time. We use that to mitigate the ransomware in case it goes 3 or 4 days. Even if it goes a week without being noticed, we can still go beyond that because we do weekly snapshots, then monthly snapshots.
okay, I'm rethinking going through these numbers one by one because I'm thinking we'll be here till Christmas.
Well, in all fairness, 1 was big. 1 sort of encompasses everything, you know, 1 was.
Right. And number 2, I think is pretty big too. And I think this is something that Dick has focused on.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is unfortunately, the state has the outline for our template. They say it's coming around Christmas.
Well, but we talked about this at the operations committee. The state plan is not a viable strategy. I mean, it's sort of an outline of what we're doing and kind of a nice thing to have on file, but it's not really a, you know, an outcome, key results kind of thing.
So how would we take that and improve it to get it to a results thing? Because that's what we're focused on, Mark. Focused on results, and I think one of the things is are getting a bang for the buck, because you know there's a red flag that goes up when we look at the budget, and you know that it's always there's always this real big allocation for technology, and we need to make sure that is paying off, that's money well spent. So somehow we need to work that in. And I think that's a big result. And we can certainly go through these today. I guess we can arrange a tour. I won't go on that tour, but unless it's after October. But Dick and Ingrid certainly can. So we got that. Downtime for all systems, that's a yes or no, I think.
Yes, we do review that. We review that on multiple systems. We have monitoring to review that.
Right.
The monitoring of technology and all. We basically do a standard where we don't, in technology's eyes, X school is not different than Y school. I provide a device for every kid. We provide an access point for every classroom. And then after the referendum's completed, we will have our camera systems and security systems back up to date.
Comment?
Yes.
But do we monitor availability of broadband to our students? And I know that's not in our bailiwick right now, you know, we're not the ones that are going to put fiber out there or everything else, but equity of technology not only is in schools, but equity of technology in the home, because we're still going to be needing to be able to link to our homes in our rural areas of the county. And I kind of understand where we have the problems, but it would really be helpful to have some kind of a visual to show geographically where we need to put hotspots and so on if we ever have to go back to all virtual and so on. But so equity is not just hardware in the schools. Equity is access for students and parents to use our technology systems.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say there is a map you can get. I can forward you the link, Dick, that will show you almost to a neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, the South Carolina broadband map, because they just, part of CARES Act funding was to fund a huge broadband audit. So I can send you the link for that, but that is something I've been talking to people about and people are very concerned about is, you know, even without going back to virtual learning, we're rolling out millions of dollars worth of ed tech. And if the kids can't get it at home, it's not fair. And a lot of people are using some of their ARPA funding to expand broadband. Our situation, I've talked to Hargray, I've talked to people in the community that are very involved in this. Whale Branch is less than 20% of the homes have broadband connection. And we just got a grant to put a cybersecurity program in there. So that, you know, we need to match that up. So and that's something I think that this technology committee would have. So we talk about what is an outcome, what's a key result. I think an outcome is we want every student in Beaufort County to have access to high-speed internet. So what initiatives, what results can we have? There's some creative thinking going on. There is some ARPA funding that's being used for this. There are areas like Hilton Head, the island, got great broadband. We're densely populated and people are mostly on broadband. But you get out into the rural areas and it gets ugly quick. So I think that would be an example of something this committee can work on as an OKR.
And one thing to add to that, the big push for SC broadband is to have the wireless mapping completed by the end of 2021. So they're going to overlay broadband and cellular services on that same map.
Yeah, I mean, 5G is coming on, and there's some talk now basically bringing in a version of DSL as a potential, short-term fix until fiber can. Anyways, those are conversations we can have down the road. But I think it's hard. To me, it's hard to sit there and be excited about a grant for cybersecurity at Whale Branch when 20% of the kids have internet. Like that just doesn't match to me. And so I don't want to get rid of the grant. I want to fix the 20% of the kids that don't have internet. Sorry, that's all.
Yeah, that's something for the to-do list. So that's a focus for our committee.
To me, that would be an outcome of technology in the district that the committee would monitor initiatives and key results towards.
Monitoring availability of broadband in underserved areas. Okay, that's I like that because I'm sure it has some numbers in there. If it's got numbers, I like it.
You could even have a budget attached to it, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then you can put those numbers in there and all of a sudden you got an equation.
This is not, I'm sorry, I'm taking you off course, but this is a quick question before we get too far down. On the website, it says that their technology is broken into two groups, technology services and ed tech. And to me, ed tech is like Scholastic, iReady, Scribbles, all those, millions of dollars we just authorized. You're not really in charge of that, right, Mark?
Well, technically, yes. I do oversee the instructional software. So after the decision's made, technology reviews it. The administrative technology reviews it for a fit with our network. And we oversee the budget because In past, we found that departments, it was easier for technology to manage their software because we keep up with the licenses and we make sure the district's safe from lawsuits. We found that it was so easy for them to hand licenses around and we're double dipping. Those are huge fines that could come back to the district. So we basically stood up and took the lead in that. Now they still authorize the transactions, but we oversee it and make sure it meshes with the district's overall hardware.
So you're guaranteeing the technical aspects of it.
Correct.
Whereas Dr. Stratos
And when we
results.
Yes. And our ed tech team is led by Colleen Beck, who's the director. She runs the tech coaches. And that group is a mixed group. We do software approvals. We share hardware approvals because every time the schools want to use software or hardware, we want to make sure that it's, first of all, okay with ISD in a fit and also a good fit for our network and not a security risk. They also are responsible for the majority of our training for our staff. So we work hand in hand to make sure that that is going correctly. They also administer our educational software. All of the stuff that has to have students rostered in it. We use our ClassLink system to help make that a single sign-on and an easy process for our students. So they don't have to remember 20 passwords for each one of the sites they entered. They only remember one.
You said our classmate system? What is the classmate system? So there's a single sign-on?
ClassLink is our single sign-on.
Because they just rolled out Scribbles and it's not a single sign-on. You got to form a whole.
Scribbles is our student onboarding.
Okay. That doesn't fall under the ClassLink stuff?
No. Because it's accessed by parents, the only thing accessed by, when you use ClassLink, you have to be a Beaufort County staff member or student and inside of our Active Directory.
Okay.
Where are we now?
Number 5, receive recommendations. Now, we formally, about a year and a half, about a year and 3/4, almost 2 years ago was the last time we met because of the pandemic. But before, we had a technology steering committee that met every 3 to 6 months, depending on getting everybody here. And it was basically made up of teachers and staff members, principals, and it was a good time to get a feel of what was going on in the ground at the schools. We also let them bring recommendations. That was another one of the ways that we, say a school wanted to run a new program. Well, the school wanted to pay for it, so we let them do it. Then we would review that program to see if it was a fit and maybe something that could be moved to all elementary schools or all middle schools. It was very helpful. Unfortunately, with the pandemic and everything involved in it, we haven't been able to have those meetings. We hope to get them back.
Yeah, it seems like that would be an insertion point for some community involvement. Get them on that committee, and that would satisfy at least some. We'd be getting some community involvement.
I mean, that committee could. I mean, that could be run sort of like the SIC, so it would be easy to have involvement.
Okay, so that satisfies. I think one of the things Ingrid brought up. Number 6.
You know, we never have enough money in technology. We always seek any reimbursement, any federal funding, anything we can apply for. If we see it, we try to get it. Because every time we do that, we offset some money that was going to be spent from the district's budget. Monitor unauthorized and authorized network. Access to the network, excuse me. We are constantly monitoring that. We have a program called AD Audit that monitors every time somebody logs into our system. It tells us what time, it tells us what device they were on, and they entered our network. And not only that, it gives you a good picture of what somebody was doing and how long they were on. So it gives us a very good information. It also lets us know if somebody's attempting to try to log in and are failing and repeatedly. So it will send alerts for that too and enable us to go, hey, what's going on here?
All right.
All right. Monitor online unauthorized online disclosure, personal identification, identification. Excuse me. We do this in a few ways. One is with our content filtering. We use iBoss for our content filters. We use a hybrid version of iBoss, meaning any device that's in one of our buildings automatically passes through a physical appliance to filter any traffic leaving our buildings. That covers every device that touches the internet in our buildings. Now, for our staff and students that leave our buildings, we use what's called a hybrid method. We use a VPN tunnel back to our district that does domain authentication and confirms that the iBoss session is good. And then all the traffic runs directly from that MiFi or that student's internet directly out to the internet. Therefore, we're not utilizing any district bandwidth for that traffic. Ensure that the district has appropriate disaster recovery and business continuity plan. We do have a disaster recovery plan. It is about 8 years old. That is a written plan, but for our more appropriate day-to-day businesses, we are constantly making sure that, excuse me, let me just mute that. Yep, they want me bad. Sorry about that. Where was that? So disaster recovery. So with our backup systems, our multiple copies of backup, and our systems we use to monitor the network for intrusions. Monitor physical security.
Can I
Wait, hold on. Dick?
Got any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark, tell me about what servers we have that are outside our power grid, so that we save our data. For continuity, you obviously are. You said you have backups. You have backups on site. Do you have backups off site? If off site, where off site?
Okay, we have backups in 2 places: on site inside the district at our primary and secondary data center. Then we have off site backups in the Barracuda cloud. We contract with Barracuda as our backup provider. We have a piece of hardware on property that we have a primary, and then we store snapshots of weekly, monthly data in their cloud.
Where is Barracuda situated?
Barracuda has multiple NOCs around the United States.
Okay.
So it's not in one place. They follow the Amazon, Microsoft. Your data will be hot in 2 places and cold in another.
Okay, thank you.
Ingrid?
Yeah, I just want to point out, we need to update that disaster recovery. I've been saying this at board meetings because the virtual reality now with the Zoom and virtual classes and everyone having devices K through 12. Are you guys working on that? Because I feel like that needs to be done sooner rather than later.
We are. The last time it was done, we actually hired an outside contractor to do it for us. And we're actually looking at doing that again, just because of the detail. I mean, you got to get power requirements, UPS requirements, throughput for every closet. I mean, it's very detailed. And then what critical pieces should be the first ones to be brought back up in the case of a disaster. So we would probably request help from an outside source to do that, just because of the intensity of the project.
Yeah, that's something that if we're on the board, we would probably want to see more than every 8 years, right, David? It's like maybe every 3 years.
Yeah, actually, I think it should probably update every year. My question on that is the business continuity. Is that woven into that disaster recovery, because you can bring the systems up, but if you don't have a place for the people to do anything, it's useless.
Correct. And one of the things we've worked on over the past 5 years is moving more services to the cloud because we are in a hurricane corridor. So if our buildings get knocked off the map, the more services we move to the cloud. We've already moved email. We're using Microsoft's Azure cloud services where we maintain domain controllers up in the cloud. Therefore, our buildings get wiped off. We lose our main internet connection at our facility. Our users can still use email and basic services. Now, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said that sounds good. Sounds good.
Monitor physical security. One of the biggest things we do is using our pass cards. So we know who's entering secured spaces, who's entering network closets. We don't like keyed doors in our IT closets because anybody can hand that key or lose that key and just twist the knob and go right in. We want a check every time that happens and a log of that.
Question?
Sure.
Talk to me a little bit about environmental physical security. In other words, how much effort is spent in making sure that we have our closets and our routers and our servers in a place that is very secure against water intrusion or problem. Mostly it comes with water.
I will tell you the truth. Technology has been an afterthought in education. We were given closets, we were given storerooms, and we've made do. And we are working through the referendum process to expand the space in these rooms. These rooms did not meet OSHA requirements, but since they were grandfathered in, we were allowed to do it. But the technician didn't have enough room to work in there. So through the referendum, we are expanding the size of them, moving them to adequate areas to meet those needs. And we're designing our new buildings with designed and intentional spaces for technology.
Thank you.
And the last one, ensure continued engagement with technology partners. We do meet with Hargray and some of our other partners in the area. We meet with Verizon. But once again, it's very hard for us to drive a lot of change in that. We ask for change, but it's hard for a business to spend $500,000 to make 10,000 by running fiber through an area. So go ahead.
Yes. Are you also reaching out to major partners in the Beaufort County? For example, do you have meetings with technology wizards from the hospital, from the Marine bases, from the other big institute, the county council, counties? Because there's a lot of times we have silos, technology silos in an area, and there's a lot of redundancy that we could save money if we joined up in network access and so on. And so that's the question. When I read this, I said, who are our technology partners other than Hargray and so on? Do we partner with community as well?
Unfortunately, for the past 2 years, we have not had those meetings with our partners at the hospital. They used to be regular meetings. We would meet about once every 6 months and have a lunch and sit down, talk about issues, what's going on, what's new, what new systems you're rolling out, what was the purpose of that system, how's it going to help your organization. But unfortunately, with COVID, those things have not been happening recently. Another meeting we do is VMUG, which is our VMware user group. So we have that meeting for the Southeast. So we get a lot of people from Savannah, the Savannah hospitals, Beaufort, CareCore, well, they're not CareCore anymore, but whatever their name is today. Those type individuals, and those are very good high-level networking meetings because it deals with the VMware, the server, and the switching side.
Thank you.
All right. I'm not sure how appropriate the shall nots are, but we'll take a look at them. I don't think you really need to respond to the shall nots. Okay, we have an interpretation on this. And I assume that you wrote this interpretation, Mark.
Yeah, and when we talked about it, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. When we talked about operations, that was like, to me, one of the things. When we talked about OE1, you said web help desk, right? And I think if you keep scrolling, that's what the monitoring indicators are. Is that right?
That's correct.
So that's the thing. To me, that was not quite enough, right? Because it was reactive, it wasn't proactive, it wasn't preventative, it wasn't community stakeholders. You've gone on and told, and I, when we were looking at this this OE that had come out of finance, my thought was I had a lot of things that I thought could be fleshed out a lot more, but we were already talking about a technology committee, which is where I think a lot of this stuff should come, because to me, there's just a lot more stuff in here that can be said that you guys are already doing. Because when I looked on our website, it looked like we had a lot more going on than was in the OEs. Like the OE sort of was like, here's a minimum of what we have to do, as opposed to here's some things that we can do. And I think to Colonel Geyer's point, can we see an occasional report on, like SolarWinds is, you know, how data moves across the network. I think you can probably have that information in a some sort of report that doesn't give away any cybersecurity issues. You know, would that be something else we could add to look at how we're preventing problems?
Absolutely.
That's why I kind of wanted to hear what we already were doing.
And Mr. Chairman, on that, I have mentioned this to Tanya a number of times, but our enterprise software, Munis, that I believe is a problem. And I know that the finance department has used that, but Munis is short for municipal. It is not configured for school districts. There are enterprise softwares that are configured for school districts. And the reason we are in Munis is, frankly, we were told to be in Munis by the county council. And that's something that I really believe that this district should explore. I'm not saying change it, but should explore the future enterprise software for this district. And having gone through and replaced an enterprise software at another educational institution, I know it's a big job, but the savings and the efficiency earned by using an enterprise software for an academic organization was significant. And this is something that I believe we should be looking at as for future strategy on our enterprise software. Thank you.
Well, that brings a question to my mind. Would that end user type of software be the purview of this committee, or would it really belong in that instance, the finance committee? Because there's a difference between Mark's technology and that technology, right? And we're talking nuts and bolts networking and availability here. If we expand it to software, then we've got a much bigger
Yes.
issue.
It will impact, it would impact everything. Academics, HR, finance, everything. It is, that's why it's called enterprise software. And so it is not just technology. The biggest issue for, though, is technology on where it's hosted, how it's hosted, the storage capacity, and all of that. So the backbone of an enterprise software system rests solely with the technology department. How it's used, every user has different uses, but enterprise software handles HR, it handles payroll, it handles reporting to governmental agencies and everything. It is the umbrella software for an organization. And Munis is not an educational, and there's other educational institutions that are using it, but if you've ever seen an educational oriented enterprise software, you would be amazed at what reports you can get easily that school boards need to get and management needs to get because they build them for school districts and not for municipalities. So that's something that we look at, I think goes into the strategy, but this really fits into this part here about the best technical systems and exceeds stakeholder expectations and so on. I don't believe Munis does that.
Well, I don't disagree at all with the Munis thing. Ingrid?
Yeah, no, I think this is a key thing for this community to look at. And as an outcome is, are we maximizing our technology and our software? And what I'll tell you is when Dick had told me that we use Munis, but I know as a parent, I'm always, PowerSchool, for example, has an HR component. PowerSchool has a finance component. PowerSchool has a recruiting component. But yet we have Munis, we have PowerSchool, we have Applicant, which is now frontline education. We just went to Scribbles. And so one of the things, and this is very comparable to what's happening in healthcare, is does it make more sense to have a best in show sort of where you piece out like what you think are the best solutions for each aspect, or do you have an all-in-one? And I think that is a strategic goal and something the board should look at, how it ties to the vision of the district. I think this would be the committee to do it, in my opinion. And we have to look at we have so many overlapping products. Are we getting the most out of each individual product? And should we be looking at how they all work together? Because I don't know why, well, that's another conversation, but I agree with Dick 100%. There's so many learning management systems out there that have budget and finance solutions and have HR solutions that we should be at least looking at and benchmarking and having a conversation about. What happens is you get what you're used to and then people add on. And all of a sudden you've been doing that for 10 years. You look back and you've got this kind of Frankenstein, overpriced, inefficient system. So I would say this would be a value maximizing strategy for software and technology.
So this committee is technology and software?
Well, our technology department, and Mark just said that he's in charge of it, has two aspects to it. One is the network, the hardware, the technology, internet and fiber and switches and access points, and that's one piece of it. But then you have to have the ed tech, which is the software, and it's not software, it's SaaS, right? It's software as a service. So and we're spending a lot of money on SaaS, and as most districts are now, and things are shifting more and more cloud-based. So the hardware is still important, but how it all works together and how those things get purchased and reimbursed, and how that all, do you guys hear that? Is that just me? How that becomes a part of a strategy, I think, is really crucial for the district. If to pick a point, like where are we going with all this technology? We authorized $10 million in contingency funds, right, for technology. Where are we heading with that? And you can't look at that without looking at what we're doing on the software end. They're too integrated now. It's not like we're running a program and we're downloading it into DOS and running a program. It's all SaaS. So to me, that's why this committee exists in a lot of ways, is because it's the intersection of finance, human resources, operations, technology, the whole bit.
Okay. Okay. Mark, if you explain again what your ed tech or the not network people, but the other part of your responsibilities. You mentioned, educational software. You do the training. I think you said.
Our ed tech coaches. Oh, I'm getting some feedback on that one. Excuse me. The ed tech coaches do the software and training, but we oversee the budget for it to validate licensing and make sure we're staying in compliance. So we don't tell ISD what they can purchase. We make sure or any department, we make sure it's compatible with the network and will run and be safe.
Okay. So I think the piece that we're talking about now is outside of your scope. So we have to figure out who to bring in for that, right? Because you make sure that that people are trained, you make sure it's available, but you don't evaluate its function, you don't evaluate how it fits with all the other things that they request. And that is a piece that's missing. And I think one of the things we're trying to figure out is, where does that end up where somebody says, we don't really need 6 pieces of software to do reading, because that's counterproductive because then we have to train on 6 pieces and yada, yada, yada. I think that's what this committee is looking for. If we don't have that, then we need it. And where would that be? I don't know who to bounce that off of, but it just seems to me, and it's just my opinion listening to you, that there is no point. We don't have a spot in the organization that does that overview and says to one area, you know what? We've already got this software that does that. We know that you really like the salesman. We know that he brought you cookies. We know, that you think that's a great piece of software, but you're getting bamboozled a little bit by that salesperson. And this over here will meet your needs. So I think we're looking for that spot. Where in the organization is that spot? And it can't be our committee because we're not part of the district, but we need to oversee that. Yes, Dick?
Yeah, that's what this outside assessment could do for us, is bring in a contractor who does this kind of work for educational institutions and has experience with large school districts like ours, and come in and do an assessment. Take a look. Take a look at the software integration. Take a look at hardware. Take a look at refreshment. Take a look at the whole gamut, and then report to the board or report to the committee and then to the board. Okay, this is what we found. And this is something you should look at. But get some experts in there, outside experts, to come in and give us the same kind of thing we got from our HR people that came in and took a look at how we do HR business. And that's what they do. There are firms out there that do this. I don't know how much it's going to cost, but we spend a heck of a lot of money on technology. And I agree with Ingrid, it's kind of an octopus out there. And there's a lot of salespeople, like you mentioned, that say, look at my shiny penny I got here, buy mine. And don't use that other system because, this is better. We need some help.
I really like the idea of bringing a contractor in as opposed to the 3 of us doing it.
Oh, come on. You have little faith. No, and I do know some, I can not that I can, but I'm sure Dick does too, know some people that do this, that do kind of mapping and whatnot and auditing. But the district can figure out there are people, in cities that will come out and do it. And I think it's a good idea. It's not, that's the thing though, like there's nowhere in the district, like you said, Mr. Stribinger, that is so I was looking at AppleTrack, right? Because we are having a lot of trouble recruiting teachers like everybody else in the country right now. And and it's bought by Frontline. They have all these things that I don't think we're using. Like that, I'm big in data, right? I'm a data analyst. There's all this data that they give the district that looks at your hiring trends and benchmarks that against, say Charleston and Horry County and Jasper. And I don't think we're doing that. But I don't know, that's not really the board's job per se, but I think from a board perspective, I want to know that somebody is doing that, as opposed to just, we're buying this. What happens all the time in healthcare is you buy a SaaS and you use 20% of it. So is there a place for the board to come in and say, we want to review this, program, and are we getting everything out of it that we thought we were going to get out of it when we bought it? Is that a reasonable thing for the board to do? Not like get down into all the operational details, but sort of, why aren't we using this piece? Like I know Frontline, they do a lot of data analytics that you can get. I don't know if we're doing that or not. Maybe we don't want to. I just don't know if those conversations are being had anywhere.
Right. That's true in every industry.
Yep.
You buy the software. That's true of my car. My car has capabilities I'm not even aware of because I don't need them.
Amen. I know.
Okay. We're at 4:30, and I think maybe it'd be a good time to stop and just mull all this over. I think we have one big to do, which I really like, is to get the contractor in. I think that would set the tone for the committee, at least give us a map. This is where we need to go. So I think that's a hard and fast to do for us. But we can mull over all this other stuff. So Mark, how does this sound to you? Are we going down a rat's hole here, or?
We're the board's will, I feel.
Oh yeah.
Glad.
Yeah.
That's a yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, in these committee meetings, if you think that we are getting too far down in the weeds and becoming a burden, you need to speak up, because just natural curiosity. I think we all have a little bit of a background in IT, and it's just natural human nature is we're going to try to get down in the weeds. So you're gonna need to be a governor for us on that stuff.
I will be happy to raise my hand if it interferes with the security of the district, and I will stop that. But other than that, I'm happy to help.
All right. So what do you think? We'll try to document what we've done here today, and then just continue it at our next meeting, whenever it is. I don't think we really should wait a month because we just started. I think it's important for us to get our scope before we go into a more relaxed schedule. So I'll have Robin check, with everybody to see, like, if we can do it in like 2 weeks or something, instead of waiting a month. Once we've gotten our mission pretty clear, I think maybe then we can go to once a month kind of deal. But right now, I think we need to really put a little extra energy into getting that fence around what we're going to do, because it's a lot bigger than I had envisioned. All right.
Are you looking at, when you say in about 2 weeks, the first week in August? So if I come up with some dates, does that work for everyone?
Yes, ma'am. We give that a try.
Yeah, and I do have a sneaky suspicion that our August 3rd meeting is going to be a big one. That's just my sense. So we may want to do like Thursday or Monday.
Yeah, I agree. And it's my sense too, because 10 of the last 11 have gone over. So.
Hey, but we have one. You got to hold on to that one victory.
Yeah, I know. That's what some people say. The betting people don't go that way, though. The betting people say 9 out of 10 is where I'm going. So see what you can do for us, Robin.
Okay,
All right, I think we have, I think we've exhausted today, so unless there's any objection, I think we should adjourn. And we'll send out the minutes this write-up as soon as we can to get your feedback, make sure it's comprehensive.
Okay,
that sure
Okay.
thank you.
All right, we're adjourned.